Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining early. This is Nadine McCormick with IUCN. We're going to start on the hour on time, so you can stay on hold for the moment. And yeah, we'll start in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining this webinar now. My name is Nadine McCormick. I'm with the IUCN Business and Biodiversity Programme, sitting here in Gland, Switzerland. And so welcome to today's webinar that we run through the BioBiz Exchange in IUCN, funded by the Agence Française de Développement. This is our fourth in a series, and this one is focusing on working with the agriculture sector to enhance nature. And we're really excited to have a couple of case studies today from Ecuador and Ethiopia, and a great framing presentation from RARE. For those of you who don't know, Panorama is a platform where you can find solutions on many challenges that we're facing around sustainable development. This morning, when I checked, there was 552 solutions across different themes, from protected areas, marine and coastal areas, ecosystem-based adaptation, agriculture and biodiversity, and business engagement. And so today's webinar is actually a joint webinar between RARE, who is one of the partners for agriculture and biodiversity, GIZ and IFOAM, and then also with IUCN, who leads on the business engagement side. And so really just in general, you're welcome to kind of go to Panorama Explorer, use the keyword search and find solutions to challenges that you're facing today. And what we're doing today is basically, we're focusing on one of the questions that I hear often in my role in IUCN, where we're building capacity of civil society organizations to better engage business. And one of them can be around, well, you know, there's some cocoa producers in this landscape that I care about, as well as protected areas, or how do I get more money for some of the honey producers in our landscape so they stop chopping down the forest that I care about. And so really this webinar is a taster, like a first level introduction into how we can start influencing the agriculture sector using value chains from producers to end users and consumers to help mobilize for sustainable development and green economy. And so we're really very happy to have a presentation from RARE, from Dulce Espelosin. Oh, I'm so sorry, Dulce, that's an awful pronunciation, who's based in Mexico. And actually will give us an introductory presentation to how they use a model around behavior change to really get impactful change towards nature conservation. So really, really excited to hear that presentation for about 10 minutes now. I first heard about this in April, and I was like, this is something that we really have to bring to the civil society organizations that we work with. It's something that's really helpful and is also helping to frame our work. And then we'll hear more about that in practice, where we'll hear from two examples. One is from Canopy Bridge, based in Ecuador. Unfortunately, Marta, who is the holder of this solution, wasn't able to join at this time. So actually, Dulce has been really closely following that case study. So she'll also present again that case study. And then a second presentation we'll have from Karin Allgoewer from GIZ, who will be talking about sustainable forest products, including honey in Ethiopia, a project that they've been working on. And as usual, for those of you who've been on these webinars before, we'll try to keep it quite interactive and dynamic. There'll be a couple of polls for you to complete and fill in to let us know who you are and what you're looking for in this call. And then also a question and answer session as well, both after the first introductory presentation and then also after the case studies, and then also time for a discussion as well at the end before we check out. So we're not using web videos deliberately. We want to preserve the bandwidth for you, especially in countries where the internet is a little bit slower. But here's a picture of your presenters today. So here's me on the left, Nadine McCormick. We also have Dulce, who will be presenting next, and Karin. Quite a female-dominated panel today, actually, so not much gender balance in this respect, but, you know, sometimes it's good to go that way as well. So no apologies there. But first of all, I'd love to hear like who you are actually on the call. So we've been tracking, we see how many people have signed up. And so we're going to launch the first poll. There's about 25 of you online so far. And so the first poll is just to find out, who are you? What organization are you with? So if you can tick, if you look at your screen now, if you could please tick the box that best corresponds with who you are. And if you really think, well, none of them speak to me, you can also tick other as well. Be curious to hear who you are. So as predicted, most of you, how many? We've got about 3/4 of you voted so far. I'd love if we could get a bit higher than that so we get a sense of who's on this call. Going to leave it open for a couple more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Last chance to click. Okay, and close. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing the results on your screen now. And share. So hopefully you're seeing the results on your screen now. So yeah, as you can see, our target audience really is civil society and non-governmental organizations. So great to see you showing out in big numbers today. Interestingly, a few academics and a few business on the line as well. That's interesting. So I'll be interested to hear. This is really tailored towards how civil society can be a change agent for more sustainable business practices. So those of you who are on the line speaking from a business perspective, use this to think how you can ask for support from civil society NGO organizations in your own networks. And 21 other, I need to look in to see who you are another time. Maybe in the questions box, you can let me know who you are. Okay, and then for the next poll, I'm interested to hear just about your experiences so far. I'm just going to open up the next poll. So the next poll is then, what is your experience with engaging agricultural change so far? Again, if you could just please take some time so we can make sure we can tailor this presentation accordingly, and just to kind of almost get a bit of a baseline here as well of what experiences we have on the call. So I see about half of you have voted so far. Super. Okay, 3/4. This is great. This is great. You're all clearly engaging in this webinar. You're not doing your emails. That's fantastic. Keep going. We're up to 79%. I'll leave it open a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and close. And sharing the results with you now. So wonderful. So actually, those of you, about a third of you on the call now, so like no experience. I'm not sure where to start. This clearly, is a webinar for you. Hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have an idea of maybe the next conversation that you can have with somebody to help start mobilizing some agricultural value chains. I'm pleased to say that most of you actually have some experience already, and this really is the basis of the BioBiz exchange. And when we're building capacity of civil society organizations, you're building on your own experiences already. And yes, you might not know how to kind of go further, but it's really about sharing knowledge between us. And there's so much we can learn from each other. So especially those of you who ticked, I have a lot of experience. We would love to hear from you later on at the end of the call. We have a discussion. We might even try to open up the microphones. And if you have something that you would like to add to what the presenters have said, you'd be really welcome to share that as well. And none of the above, well, not sure why you're on this webinar, but hopefully you're going to enjoy it anyway. Super. Okay, so moving on, and we're going to hand now over to Dulce. So just make sure that your microphone is is unmuted, Dulce. Yeah, I see you're ready. And then I'm just going to hand over a presentation as well to Dulce. So hopefully you've got your slides ready as well. Let's see, please bear with us. Oh, back one slide. Oh, sorry, Dulce, I didn't give you enough warning.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you really well. I can just see all your slides now, though, on the read mode.
Oh, okay. Let me just swap a little bit. Thank you. There.
Perfect. Looking really good. Really excited for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine, and welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to share with you some of the experience that I have in my years through working in RARE, and now, well, sharing with all of you what are some of the case studies and things that we have been doing in Latin America. So thank you again. So my name is Dulce Espelosin, and as Nadine said, I'm from Mexico. I live here in Mexico. So I know we are super far away, so hi. And well, I've been working in the use of social marketing and behavior change for over 11 years, where, well, in places like Mexico, of course, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, and many other places around the world, but mainly where the Spanish-speaking world is. So I am here today to share what I think is the power of behavior change as a tool. As a great tool for change, specifically for agriculture. Through the years, I have learned that promoting correctly a behavior is really important. Providing knowledge and solutions invite people to take action. But I also know that behavior change is difficult, very, very difficult. So I would like to start asking if any of you attending today are a Star Trek fan. I don't know if some of you know of this guy. This gentleman, well, you know, he is a little bit of special when making decisions and choices. So his name is Mr. Spock, and he's the classic Homo economicus. That's what we call him. And so he's the kind of person that likes to use models and predicting human decisions. He's very, very rational, clear-headed, and he makes his choices purely based on the outcomes he expects. Indeed, well, what we know as a classic economic guy like Spock has in mind when taking a decision, he take a look at the human behavior choices, he tried to see what are the regulations, what are the rules over there, and he based everything on the data available. So when we are making a decision, normally we always take this in consideration, what to follow, what is over there with regulations and rules, what I need to keep on the track. I also take in consideration everything that has to be with financial incentives and if there's something for me. If there's something for me, I might be willing to take a risk. But if not, I'm gonna follow the regulations. So that's the typical model that everybody normally follows when taking a decision. If I'm gonna, for example, buy a car and I know that buying a car that is a hybrid and it's electrical, maybe I will, you know, have some incentives, economical incentives, so that will kind of motivate me to buy this car instead of a normal car that uses gasoline. So that's something that I always take in consideration when making a decision, right? And another typical thing that we always take in consideration is, of course, the information. So if I don't know that a hybrid car will give me some discounts, for example, with government, maybe I won't buy it. So there are three things that I'm going to take in consideration when doing a decision. I'm going to follow the regulations. I'm going to make sure that everything is where the law is and I'm following the rules. I'm going to make sure that everything that has to be with the economical side, it's, you know, beneficial for myself, but I'm also want to have all the right information. So that's what takes for me, for example, to take a decision and to make a decision. And then, of course, that's what we call the classic environmentalist toolkit. And that's what we try to do when talking about environmental. If we're talking about agriculture, we try to say, okay, these are the rules. You are not allowed to use agrochemicals, for example. and we always kind of ban the things. We always tend to say, no, you can do this, you can do that. So that's the way that we normally goes when we are a governmental official, or when we are a forest ranger, and sometimes the information could be there. And what I noticed, and I was working in a national park here in Mexico, and what I noticed about information is that we tend to fill out everything that we do with a lot of information that nobody reads. So it's important that we have that information in our mind. Also, what are the rules and regulations for the people, and what are the economic incentives? And that's something that it's there and has been there for many years. But if you think in another person that takes decisions in another way, different from this guy in the blue shirt, and this guy in the yellow shirt, his name is Kirk, and Captain Kirk has a very different way in reacting to the situations around him. I don't know if somebody from here knows how he reacts normally when taking a decision, but he's more impulsive, he's emotional, and he likes to take some risk. So that's the difference. So a guy like Kirk, the yellow one, will take the decision based more on the emotions, and a guy like Captain Spock, Mr. Spock, will make it based on only the data, the information, and the incentives. So how do we, as normal people working in agriculture and with communities, will make sure that we are arriving and achieving our goals with both personalities that are very different? So we need to make sure, as people working in the field, to understand our audience. That's very, very important. If we understand how our audience take decisions, it's going to be easier for us. So, for example, how do we know so far? So a guy like Kirk will need to know everything that has to be with the emotions and how to move with the heart. So, for example, if we say to a guy like Kirk that, for example, by buying a car that it's hybrid, they will also save the future of the future generations. The children will have more time to live and in a clean environmental. That's something that he might take in consideration. And that will be the difference between the guy like Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. So that's something that we really need to take in considerations. And we need to know that emotions are often more powerful than reason. Sometimes making the decision of what we are going to leave to our kids, it's often more powerful than just the data. So that's something that we need to take always in our minds. We also know that people are social animals, or we are social animals. So influences make a really, really important role with us. So in other words, if I'm gonna buy this car and I ask my husband or my father or my sister, what do they think about the hybrid car? It's very likely that if they give me a good feedback, I might buy the car. But if they give me a bad feedback, I might think about it and I might stop my decision. So it's very important that we also think about the people that are around our target audience, people influencing the target audience, people surrounding them and giving them some advices in order to make decisions. So every time that you think about agriculture, and we're going to go to that later in the case study, try to think in the people that are very influential with your target audience, who they listen to, what are the things that they are hoping to hear from their key influencers, and try to make some tactics to be around these key influencers and have them kind of on your side. So if you're trying to promote, for example, the use of only organic fertilizers instead of agrochemicals, try to think who is the leader of the community, who are the people that the community will be listened to, and how you can involve that people in the decision making. And of course, the third thing that it's important for us, and it's outside of the typical toolkit, it's what the context. And the context is very important for us, because if you talk to a farmer that it's in a community and you invite this person to be listen to you in a, I don't know, in a place that it's super, in a restaurant that it's in the city and it's super fancy, it might be very, perhaps, you know, something that is distracting instead of having the full attention of the person. So try to, you go to the plot of this person and try to make sure that he feels comfortable or she feels comfortable. And whenever you're talking to this person about the use of organic fertilizers instead of agrochemical, they feel like they are in an environment where they can, you know, walk in or walk out whenever they want, and that they feel that they control the atmosphere, because that's something very important when making decisions. And so our toolkit, the newer or updated toolkit, is what we call the levers for behavior change. And that, of course, includes the material incentives that we were discussing before, the information, rules, and regulations, but we decided to include what I was describing to you: social influences, emotional appeals, choice architecture. And so choice architecture, just let me tell you, is the context. Where do we decide to work with our people, with our target audience, how to say the things in a way that they can understand what we're saying. And emotional appeals, how do we approach in the heart of these people? How can we tell them that what they're doing is beneficial for somebody else and for themselves? And social influences, as I was saying, who are the key influencers that they listen to? Try to make sure that you kind of pitch in everything, so you can have a better understanding of the target audience of the behavior change that you are promoting. And so this is something that we have in RARE, and it's called theory of change, and it's a strategy that we like to follow, and it's based on those levers that I was telling you. And so, for example, as you can see, we have the first one, that is a conservation result, and we always go from right to left, just so we can start from what we want to conserve or preserve. And so just try to think, if you want to preserve, for example, a forest or a specific jungle or something like that, and what are the threats that are, you know, threatening that ecosystem in specifically, deforestation, fires, agrochemicals, etc., etc. Then try to think, what is the behavior that you must change in order to reduce this threat? So people, it's very easy. If you think deforestation is my main threat, who is behind that? Who is the people, or who are the people making the deforestation? And that's your target audience. And what the behavior you want to change? Well, you want to stop deforestation. So that's the behavior change you want to change. And what are the barriers of adoption of these new behaviors? Social, political, economical, technological, how you can remove it? By providing training in new techniques, by providing tools. You have to think on all of that. And then, of course, what are the conversations that you need to make sure that these people are starting to talk and discuss between them? Social influences, make sure that they talk about it and try to process the information between their peers. And of course, what are the items we need to shift in order for these conversations to take place? And information. And so information, just try to think in a mural or a song or a puppet show or whatever you think is the best way to arrive to these people that it's your target audience. So yes, we do think that local knowledge is key to build an evidence-based strategy, because that's the first step. So just think about all the levers of behavior change when you are trying to promote a behavior change, and try to make sure that you kind of have everything. So I'm going to stop here because I know it's a lot of information.
And no, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. If you could just move it on one more slide, please.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. So yeah, I just have to kind of give another big up to that theory of change. And when I say I first saw it presented in April, and we had a kind of a click aha moment in some of the projects that we're working on. And so I really highly recommend that theory of change to think logically through the projects and interventions and who you're targeting. And actually, I forgot to mention earlier on, but in the handouts function in this GoToWebinar panel, you'll be able to download all the slides from today. So you'll be able to kind of take that theory of change. There's also, of course, you can download it from RARE's Toolkit as well. But at this stage, let's give Dulce a little break. I don't know if there's any questions at this stage. You need to click on the questions box in the panel, and you can type your questions in there, and then we can actually what I can do is then we can redirect them to those who actually posed the question. So yeah, just to make sure that as you think of a question, just type it in straight away actually while you think of it. It's not going to change anything on the presentation. I'll get to see them, and then we'll make sure to kind of post them at the right moment, and then if time allows it later on, we can unmute the microphone. So I don't see any questions so far for the moment. That's kind of normal for this stage in the webinar. So yeah, if there's no questions for the moment, then well, let's go on and hear about this case in Ecuador with Canopy Bridge. So yeah, again, Marta, who was actually the original case study holder, couldn't actually share it on the call today. So Dulce, I'm super grateful that you can share this case study with. Oh, actually, hang on a minute. As I said, there's one question coming in here now. So let's just see who this is from. So, oh, I'm going to do an awful version of your name here. So thank you, Sonigitu. Thank you so much for your question. It's what is the strategy for knowledge applications?
Yes, that's a very good question. For knowledge, we normally use what we call social marketing, and I can, in another webinar, I can give you more details on that. But the social marketing is basically using the same 4 P's that we use at commercial marketing. So product, price, place, and promotion. So we try to use all of those P's to use murals, everything that has to be with knowledge that it's available for the target audience. We need to know where our target audience normally goes, and we try to make sure that we have some information there. We try to make sure that if our target audience goes to this specific store to buy some things for the agriculture, we try to talk to the people or the manager of this store, and maybe they give us the opportunity to have a mural over there or have a brochure or something that gives the information of our trainings and other kind of stuff that we're promoting with the behavior change in that specific place. Okay,
brilliant. Yeah, no, it's a nice question. Thank you, Sonny Gipto. So, okay, and then he says, then how can it impact on character and attitude? But yeah, maybe that will come back for a discussion there later on. So, yeah, no, great questions. I think you're calling in from Nigeria, so thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, so let's go to this case in Ecuador then, please, and maybe maybe 5 minutes or so for the presentation. Let's see how much you can share in this time. Also, thank you. Yeah, cheers.
Yes, and I'm going to share a little bit of more of knowledge and attitude right now. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, can you hear me now? Okay.
It's moving, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. So now we're moving to a very specific case from our latest work done in Latin America. We partnered with BMU from the German government and IFOAM, that is the organic leader around the world. And we had trainings, or 9 trainings over the world. But today I want to share what we did in Ecuador with a local and well-positioned partner that it's called Canopy Bridge. And Canopy Bridge, what they do normally is that they act as the bridge that connects the small farmers with prestigious restaurants in the capital of Ecuador, that is Quito. So we focus in a very specific place that it's called Mamayacta. And so we work with around 50 Quechua farmers, that it's an indigenous part of the jungle over there. And so that's the name, Inti Association in Mamayacta. And that's where we focus. And that's the specific, you have to be with target audience. So you can know what are the motivations that they have, the barriers that they have in order to adopt a new behavior. So the problem with the Inti Association in this specific place, that was the quality of product delivery to the market. So the problem is that back in the middle of 2018, around that, Marta, who is the director from Canopy Bridge, was struggling with the fact of the Quechua farming producing in time the products in demand by the chefs. So farmers could understand why it was important for chefs to have certain products in time and in a fashion way delivery. So the logistical chains were very weak and the communication was hard because the difficulty to reach farmers in the area. So Marta from Canopy Bridge was promoting the use of native seeds grown with only agroecological, or what IFOAM calls organic agriculture, and aims to have sustainable production system based on ecological cycles. So they were trying to have you know, all of the products and times, because the chefs were selling and preparing specific dishes for the city with those seeds. So, for example, this is a very native seed over there that it's called macambo or patasmuyo, and is from the cocoa, mainly from the Amazon rainforest, and it's a very unique seed, or how they call it, patasmuyo. And this seed is very demanded by the chefs because, as I was saying, it's very unique and the flavor is very, very, very specific. So the problem that they have is that the farmers were having failures with the quality of delivery and the quantity and the punctuality in the commercialization. So this was because of many reasons. As I said, the difficulty of signal in this area, and then of course they have some complications like the lack of time or personnel to harvest in time in an hygienic peeling habits of the seeds. So that was a problem for the chefs. So first of all, we have to understand in a very deep way our target audience. So we conducted a qualitative and quantitative research where we were able to recognize their barriers for change, their motivations to adopt the new techniques, and more important, we were able to start building a behavior change strategy. We started by designing a series of visits to the plots of the farmers, and based on their needs, Canopy Bridge designed a series of trainings to support farmers, to help them to work on organic production and to diversify. Canopy Bridge also encouraged farmers to keep working with the ancestral and agroecological techniques, and also adding new forms to work. And also they have some specific trainings on the importance of the logistical chain, so how to peel the macambo in a very hygienic way, but also making it prettier. And that was also something that gives them the opportunity to be, you know, always connecting better with the chefs and what they were asking for. So we support Canopy Bridge on their strategy for change with a theory of change, and that's something that I was sharing before. And so, for example, just to give you an idea, the behavior change that we were trying to promote is that it was that producers of INTI, that is the association, will be producing and delivering organic products from the chacras or plots to Canopy Bridge in time and form for the restaurants of Ecuador. And we had a baseline and we had an expectation goal to reach. And that was something that it was very specific, a very specific behavior that we were looking for. But of course, we had to have a threat reduction. And that was that Canopy Bridge was going to give some trainings in the improvement of the communications with suppliers, and of course to work in the effective and timely delivery system for them. And of course we have to know about knowledge, and so that was the first thing, right? So for the indie farmers, we decided to inform them that we were giving this series of trainings for the market to improvement with emphasis on effective and timely delivery that Canopy Bridge was providing and starting in certain month. So that was the information. They need to know that these trainings were available and when and what they need, and it was for free. And so all of that was in the brochures, in the mural, and everything that we were promoting. And something very important is that we had, if you can see, knowledge was first happening. So it was in 2018. And that will give us the opportunity and then to work in threat reduction by 2019, because if they don't have knowledge or information, it's very hard that we kind of reduce the threat. And then after that, we will be able to create behavior change. And so I know that you must be wondering what happened with conservation. Well, the bet is that if we have people producing better and diversifying their plots and having more effective ways to sell, and they know that the market is demanding only agroecological seeds or agroecological systems based on native seeds, we know that the sustainability of the Amazonian region, biodiversity, will be maintained. And that will be something that will help to recover the soil maintenance and water filtration, nutrition, and that will spread all over the species and will aim in having a better conservation of the Amazonian agricultural system. So as you can see, as we do behavior change, we also can always achieve some conservation results. And that's something very important that we have to have in mind. And so about knowledge, we had, as you can see, people, local people painting a mural with the information. We had a slogan and a logo that says something that my plot is like wellness, culture, and life. That's why my plot worked. That's the slogan. And then we made like a puppet strip, and kids were, because they were influencers for our target audience, we had a puppet show where kids were, playing a role in how the farmers were giving products in time in a very hygienic way to the chefs, and that was something that was appealing into the emotions of the target audience. And also we had, many other materials that were just very specific for our target audience, and that's how we did it. And that was the way that we work with the specific case in Ecuador. So I'm going to stop there again and make sure that you have time for Q&A. Thank you.
Super. No, thank you so much, Dulce. And really, yeah, it's such a great example. So I'm really glad we're able to kind of share it today. So I'm going to try to get the screen back. Let's see, how smoothly did that work? Ta-da! Okay, so yeah, just to say, so Marta, who actually provided the solution on Panorama, the platform. So this is what it looks like if you go to this link. And again, if you download the handouts, you can find the link directly. Or you could just go to Panorama Solutions and just search for gastronomy. There's probably not many that have that in this title, and you'll find that straight away. So you'll hear more of a detailed breakdown from actually the case study provider. But thanks again to Marta for Dulce for sharing that now. So then we'll move on to our next case study actually. In the meantime, please, if you've got any questions, fill them in the question box while you remember. And then we'll come to them shortly after Karin's presentation. So Karin, with GIZ and based out of Ethiopia. So yeah, she's the program manager for the Biodiversity and Forestry project there. So Karin, I've unmuted you, so hopefully you're ready to share.
Yes, here I am. Do you hear me?
Loud and clear. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. So good afternoon from my side here in Addis Ababa. I saw in the first picture shown by Dulce some plants of coffee. So I would like to take you to the place of origin to coffee, and which is Ethiopia, the cradle of Arabica coffee. And Ethiopia has the image of a very dry country, but actually in the southwest of Ethiopia, there are still a lot of forest, Afro-montane forest, that is under heavy pressure by agricultural projects and development in general of infrastructure. So in our project, we are very keen on trying to preserve these last remaining forests, which are actually being protected by the government in the form of biosphere reserves. And in the southwest of Ethiopia, we have at the moment 4 of the 5 biosphere reserves of the country. In this area, in this forest, as I said before, we find the original coffee, and this is very important for Ethiopia because the gene pool of the Arabica coffee is here. So if something happens and if there is a disease affecting the coffee in other countries of the world, which produce and export much more coffee than Ethiopia at the moment, the genetic resources of coffee can be found here in the Ethiopian forest. In this area, there is a high population living on forest products, not only the collection of coffee, but also spices. Some of them are endemic to Ethiopia, and also the production of honey and beeswax is here very high. So for us, supporting the Ethiopian government and also the farmers to protect these forests is one of our key activities. And for protecting the forests, the best way is to support the farmers in benefiting from conservation. And benefiting from conservation includes the sustainable use and export of non-timber forest products. The way the farmers in this area have access to the products of the forest is through a form of organization which is called PFM groups, or participatory forest management groups. And in this form, groups of farmers have access to forest space where they can collect and benefit from some of these products. So I will tell you now about the project that GIZ has been implementing from 2015 to 2018. The project phased out last year, and it was a strategic alliance or a partnership among some private companies from Germany and GIZ. This is a type of project that we call PPP, public-private partnership. So this project was related to the production of coffee, wild coffee, and honey in quality exports to be exported then by these private companies to Germany. In the case of coffee, we have concentrated in wild coffee. Wild coffee for us is the coffee that grows naturally in the forest. This means coffee trees, coffee plants that have not been planted. They have been growing in the forest naturally for ages, for centuries. So there is a natural regeneration of these coffee plants. We differentiate this from a semi-forest coffee, which is the coffee plants that are planted in the forest or forested areas, but does not grow. I mean, it has to be planted. And then we have the garden coffee and the plantations. So we have concentrated in the wild coffee because it's very much related to the conservation of the forest. And when we deal with wild coffee, it is also understood that the forest will not be touched, and we will allow the natural regeneration of the trees in the forest. Wild coffee used to have a very bad image in Ethiopia because the farmers usually go to the forest to pick the coffee, and they start drying the coffee on the ground. So these coffee cherries get molded, get dusty, and that influenced the final quality of the coffee. So what we have developed through this project are some techniques to dry the coffee, sun dry the coffee, so it's not dried in ovens, but especially under the sun. And so this wild coffee, the sun-dried wild coffee, can be exported to Germany. With that, we have a story to tell. You know, when you say this coffee has been picked, hand-picked by farmers in a forest, in a biosphere reserve that we're trying to protect without affecting the forest. And the farmers are taking care in the drying technique of the coffee to preserve the quality. Then we have a story to tell behind, and this helps the marketing of the coffee in Europe. The coffee has been also been certified to pay an additional plus for the farmers. So it becomes a competitive product to be sold by the farmers. I have to tell you here that there is a very high and strong domestic demand for coffee. So if you really want to export, you have to see ways of paying a plus to the farmers for the quality that they get through different processes. This is related to coffee. Then I can talk about honey, which is another product with a very high demand locally. So here we have also tried to increase the quality of the processing of the honey. And to certify it to have market possibilities in Europe. With coffee, the relationship among the farmers and the private company still exists, and we are, even though the project has phased out last year, we are continuing also the support, and we have increased the support to more cooperatives through another project that has started last year. So before we were working only in 2 areas, in 2 biosphere reserves, and now we are working in 5 areas. With honey, I mean, the final result was not very good, and I think we also have to talk about failures. As I said, the local market is so high and the local price is so high that usually the cooperatives prefer to sell the products locally instead of going through all the quality improvement process to be exportable. Honey exports in Ethiopia are mainly done by private companies. We managed that for the first time the cooperatives were able to export honey, but as I said, the relationship with the buyer is interrupted now because as I said, the cooperatives prefer to sell at the local market because of the high price. I think I can stop here and then be open for questions.
Super. Thank you so much, Karin. No, really, it's interesting. I mean, the contrast between the 2 case studies that we've heard there, and really like the power of, you know, the story and the origin of where, you know, these the agricultural goods are coming from. So I think they're 2 fantastic examples to share. So I really appreciate that. I'm looking to see if there's any more questions. None for the moment. So while you're thinking about your questions and typing them into the question box, I did just want to kind of highlight as well, there's quite a few cases that we could have shared that are on Panorama Solutions. And again, if you just search for, you know, agriculture, environment or something, then many come up. And so we just thought we would highlight a few here now which are relevant for different instances. So the Africa Wildlife Foundation have a really great story around in a development corridor where agriculture was being promoted at a large scale, and how they were able to kind of mobilize and double sugarcane production through just more clever planning and governance structures around some of the sugarcane plantations without having to kind of add extra inputs. Another great story about applying technology in a sustainable agricultural landscape. And also the Cerrado waters in Brazil is a nice story here that actually we featured on a previous BioBiz webinar, looking at how to set up a landscape level of initiative where you've got many partners, In this case, it was coffee producers, hydro, eucalyptus plantations, plus other communities, how they came together at a landscape level watershed protection and restoration program. And so there's a nice case study, plus a webinar that we featured 2 times ago. And then also another example from Rare, actually using trying to get uncertified organic farmers linking to urban markets as well. But that's there's a ton that we could have shared as well. So there's just a few to keep you going. So in the meantime, I'm just looking at the box on questions. Still no questions for the moment, which I'm guessing it means that the presenters did such a great job. Again, the question box is just on the side panel there. You can just simply type in your question there. We can spot it, and then we can make sure we can share it with others. Maybe in the meantime, I mean, there were a couple of questions that were shared through the sign-up form. So thanks for those who are filling them in. So I think Adolfo, you're on the call at the moment. Adolfo Rojas, you're based in Costa Rica. I don't know who would like to take this one, but how can the environmental benefit of organic agriculture be measured? So I guess that's further down the theory of change there, but how would you measure the environmental benefits of organic agriculture? Do either of you want to take that? If not, I can also talk a little bit about what IUCN is doing in that regard.
Well, I can answer maybe.
Go ahead, thanks, Karin. Yeah.
So the impact of organic agriculture in the environment, I understand, right?
Yes, environmental benefit, exactly, yeah.
Okay, if we understand organic agriculture as avoiding the use of chemicals, of course, this has a huge impact on the environment. First, if you are talking about honey and bees, you know, if you don't contaminate the plants from which the bees feed from, then they can pollinate many other plants which are important for not only for the ecosystem but also for the agriculture. And besides, you should always keep in mind the ecosystem services of many protected areas, especially in terms of water source and good soil for agriculture. So we are always trying to make people aware of this. You know, here in Ethiopia, for example, in the past, the government has more or less obliged farmers to use agrochemicals for agriculture, and now they are realizing the huge damage that this has done to a clean water and clean soil and a clean environment.
Thank you. No, great response. Okay, and actually there's a couple of questions now coming in for you now again, Karin. So Claudia, who's with GIZ in Mexico, I don't know if you actually know her already, but she apologizes, she missed some of this, but she wondered, because the audio cut, but she said, why is the coffee exported instead of finding local markets in Ethiopia? And a second question for you to think about as well. So Ludovic is wondering, Ludovic is actually with IUCN, newly joined as our agriculture advisor. So Ludovic is asking what kind of environmental labeling is used for the coffee and for the honey. So there's 2 questions there for you.
So the first question is related to local market versus export. I mentioned that the coffee has a huge local market here. The farmers can produce as much as they can. They will always find a local market. Ethiopians are huge coffee drinkers. Why we are dealing with exports? Because the government also has a policy on promoting exports in the country. This is the only way in which the country has access to foreign currency. And the exports in Ethiopia are not very high, so whatever they can export, they are promoting that. That would be my answer, but the local demand for coffee and for honey is very strong. I don't remember the second question.
That's okay. It's what kind of environmental labeling is used for the coffee and the honey?
there is actually no environmental labeling as such so far. These companies have certified their products that they're selling as organic and fair trade. And in the case of coffee, there is also a certificate on hand-picked, wild-picked. So these are the labels that are used for marketing, but at the moment there is no environmental label saying, for example, these products are coming from a biosphere reserve in Ethiopia.
Okay, interesting. No, thank you. So yeah, there was another question that came in from Grenada. So Davin Baker, I think you're still on the line there. So there was a question you asked in your sign-up survey. Is there a role for innovation, like artificial intelligence or something like that, within the agriculture sector to support nature? So I don't know, Dulce, if you want to take this one, or Karin, if you also have something to say on the role of innovation in artificial intelligence to support the agriculture sector and nature.
Well, I think here we are a bit too far from artificial intelligence. We are trying to implement some innovations for monitoring our impact with farmers. And besides, I mentioned before, we are continuing our support to the coffee farmers with other projects. And one of them is starting to work with, or the plan is actually to work with blockchains. So to monitor the benefit that is brought to the farmers at all levels.
Okay.
So we're trying to include innovations. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and another innovation that we're exploring with is regarding the biological indicators. And so, for example, when we're trying to have some indicators on how to measure conservation results, something that we have been using lately or recommending to use are the drones. So, for example, we can capture photos or videos of how the plots are when the baseline is taken, and then compare after 2 or 3 years and see how the land and the the soil and the diversity of the plots are.
Yeah, great. Okay, super. So I'm just checking if there's any more questions. This might be your last chance. So if you really have that last burning question, please put it in the chat box. Let's just to check on the time. So we have a couple more minutes. I would be interesting just to hear for those who are on the call now. Actually, we've heard quite a few. Well, building blocks is the terminology that we use in Panorama Solutions as a way to try to tease out what are those success factors that can be potentially replicated in other case studies. And I think that's really what makes these Panorama Solutions quite unique in their utility and application in other contexts. So we had quite a few lessons today. I don't know if those who are on the phone, especially if there's some other experiences they want to add, you can raise your hand in the webinar, the GoToWebinar platform, the sidebar, if you want to also just kind of make a comment on some of the relevant things that you've heard today in terms of those building blocks or success factors. So is there anybody who is interested in raising their hand? And then I can unmute your microphone. Anyone feeling brave to raise their hand? Any comments? Oh, it's a very polite group this time. The last time there was some really challenging questions. Okay, all right. I don't see. I'll just check in the questions one last time. So I do see. So a question. Okay, so Davin Baker is happy with his answers and he's interested to hear about the drone. Is my NGO just acquired a drone to support conservation and natural resource management on a small Caribbean island? So I'm looking forward to exploring possibilities. And actually, maybe Davin, why don't you reach out to Dulce? I mean, you see her contact details are in the webinar slides there, and also yeah, afterwards I'm sure you'll be able to Google her as well. A last question from Lucas. Actually, we'll let this one get past. So, what incentives work to engage businesses in adaptation? We kind of addressed this on the last webinar. Do either of you want to take it, or I can talk about the lessons we talked about in the last webinar? So this was incentives to get businesses involved in adaptation. Dulce or Karin, do you want to have a go?
Well, we
Well,
yes, and we don't give
yeah.
an incentive to businesses.
Yeah, and I can give like incentives that we normally do. It depends on the target audience, and that's what I was saying, that it's very important to get a very deep knowledge on what are the motivations for them. So, for example, we had a case in where people were struggling with native seeds. They didn't have any native seeds. What we did, it was to create a bank of seeds. So people could go into the bank of seeds and reach out to the more ancestral seeds that they were able to have, and they were having an exchanging fair where they were exchanging one kind of seed through the other, and then with that they were able to start kind of retaking the ancestral seeds that they have for many years lost. So that was an incentive for a very specific community that we work in Mexico.
Thank you. Super, and it gives me a beautiful segue as well into our just some next steps as well, because well, actually on the next slide I can share a link to where we actually have all the previous webinars that we've had so far through Panorama Solutions. And so yeah, the previous one actually 3 months ago was on mobilizing business around nature-based solutions, of which adaptation was one. And I think my main takeaway, the tweet that came from that, is knowing what the problem is of the company and then adapting. Like nature provides the solution to many problems, whether it's around waste or disaster risk reduction or through clean water flows, whatever the problems are for those companies, then what are the solutions that nature can provide to really tailoring the adaptation approach to the the issues that company is facing, exactly what Dulce was saying, like targeting. So in the meantime, just in terms of wrapping up and next steps, so you will automatically receive a survey as soon as you close the webinar. Please fill in that survey. It's really quick. It just takes 2 minutes less. It's a chance for you just to kind of let us know how we're doing, how we can make it even better in the future. If there's some particular questions that you would like us to address in future webinars or particular themes, but also a lot of you had experience on this call, and we would love to capture that and share it with others, especially NGOs and countries where we're just starting to see business engagement really get going. We would love to build on your experiences. So if you're interested in getting support on that from our team, then please tick that box and we'll contact you as well. So fill in that survey, submit your solutions. Our next theme we're looking at on the 12th of December. And we have a lot of questions around how do we mobilize finance. We might get companies who can put a little bit on the table in terms of, let's say, a restoration around a cocoa a forestry landscape. But then how do we mobilize other financing as well? So again, there's a ton of solutions on Panorama already, but we'd love to receive some more. If you particularly have experiences on this, please get in touch. And then maybe we can also promote your solution for the next call. So the next one will be 12th of December 2019. And otherwise, just thank you so much to our presenters. So Dulce for doing a double presentation with our introduction to the theory of change, and then also the Canopy Bridge project in Ecuador, and also to Karin as well, so presenting from Ethiopia, and just to the team who's been supporting me here as well, and to all of you for sticking it out right to the end. So really appreciate your active participation. And so please do feel free to share the registration or the link to the recording as well. And we look forward to staying in touch. Okay, thank you, everybody. Goodbye. Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.
Bye.